Okay. I guess my mic is on.
Good afternoon. That was really loud. I would like to welcome everyone this afternoon to the October 11th meeting of the Lynn Haven City Commission. And at this time, Commissioner Barnes will lead us in our invocation. If you would please stand. Thank you.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for the many blessings that you bestowed upon us. And dear God, we just pray and ask your blessings upon these people who have come to take part in the business of the city. And dear God, we pray for our first responders, for those troops who are overseas, who are protecting us from harm's way. And Lord, we just thank you for all the blessings that you have given us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Would you please join me now in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to begin with the mayor's report. And you might, if you have the agenda in front of you, you might notice letter A, I have listed on my report as discussion about Uber. I've had numerous requests, phone calls, emails, letters, and comments from the public wishing to have Uber in Bay County. If you're not familiar, there are two companies now, Uber and Lyft, spelled Lyft, who offer very affordable transportation to those who do not have other ways of moving about other than the trolley or taxi. For example, recently in Washington, D.C., one time I had been there to go from Washington, D.C. to Potomac, Maryland, where my daughter lives, was $75 in a taxi, but an Uber driver took me for $18, which is a great, a sizable savings. And so I was recently at a meeting of mayors at the invitation of Mayor Mike Thomas at Panama City Beach, and several mayors were there as well as city managers. And so I had been under the impression, as many had, that Uber was not allowed in Bay County because of some county ordinance or because of some restriction by Bay County. And the county manager said, no, there absolutely is no restriction for our using Uber in our county, other than the fact that the cities, the municipalities, were not willing to issue licenses. And so after doing a little research and making a couple of phone calls, what I found out, to operate a taxi service, it's just like any other business in Lynn Haven. If you wanted to operate a taxi service, you would need a business license. And there are a couple of different categories. My understanding at this time is it would be like a $60 business license. Now, there is a little chagrin on the part of those residents who are interested in doing Uber, because in most cities you don't have to have an additional business license. But what I wanted to bring before the commission today, just as a discussion and possibly get input from the public as well, not necessarily to vote on this, because I don't really think it's a voting matter, because I think it's already legal. I just don't think anyone's doing it. But I'd like some discussion. There are many people who work on the beach, for example, and if they're trying to get out there on a Sunday to work, they're having to pay $50, and if they're only making $45 at their job that day, it sort of takes away any incentive to go. And so I think it would add an additional method of transportation. I would love to see the city of Lynn Haven take the lead on this. Let us be the leading city to start having Uber, and invite our people in the city. It's a great way to make extra money. If you go on the Uber site, it's UBER, and some of the qualifications to be an Uber driver: your car has to be a 2005 or above. It has to be a four-door vehicle. You have to undergo a background check. And just to see how that worked, today I went online and qualified myself as an Uber driver to see what they did. And so what I had to do is I had to upload a copy of my driver's license and submit by signature to a background check to ascertain that I was not a felon, a sexual predator, or any other of those terrible things. And then you immediately, within a few hours, become qualified as an Uber driver. And what a great way for people to be able to make a little extra money. It's something you can do on your own time. And so I just wanted to sort of open it up for a little bit of discussion. Not necessarily, it's not about a vote or any of that, but would just love to say that Lynn Haven, would embrace this idea and be a leader in Bay County. So first, any discussion or comments from the board about it? Commissioner Shadd?
In today's paper, there was an article that referred to a new form of worker that they're finally getting around to recognize, calling gig workers. And that term really originated with musicians. When they had a gig, it meant they had 2 or 3 days booking someplace. And what they're finding out is that, like it or not, our way of life and our lifestyles are changing. And you have a lot of people out there that want to work independently. They're not part-time workers, they're not full-time workers. But what they want to be able to do is create a flexible workforce. And the government is finally recognizing, I think as it stands now, they're saying about 4 or 5% of the workforce is what they call these gig workers. So they're working for themselves. They schedule themselves to work at all hours. And I think Uber is just one of the manifestations of this type of workforce that is coming into play. And like I say, it's going to happen. That generation that's coming along, they value their independence, they value their flexibility in trying to work. When they want to work, and they may work 16, 18 hours a day if they want to, but they just want the flexibility, and they're not full-time, they're not part-time, they're just gig workers. So get used to that term, you're probably going to hear it more. I have no objections to Uber. I think more competition there is out there is going to benefit all of us. Now, don't misunderstand me. You will hear publicity and there will be instances of something going wrong or something bad happening. It happens right now with regular cab drivers too. So, I'm all in favor of it.
Anyone else on the board have comments? Enter into a discussion about it, or
Are we going down, or if we want to go down the line, or?
Sure. Commissioner Ashbrook.
I don't want to step on anybody.
It's have to be sequential, I guess. I don't have any problem with it. I'm very familiar with it. I've used it a few times in metropolitan areas, in the Palm Harbor, Dunedin, St. Petersburg area, where my son lives, and I've had very positive experiences with it. So I would be supportive of it, and if Lynn Haven would like to take the lead, I have no druthers about that.
It's exciting. Commissioner Barnes?
I have no objections to it.
Yeah, I'm a Uber user, whatever you would call it. I've used it several times. Just used Uber in Mobile last week. I do think that if there is a negative, it will negatively impact our trolley system. But I recognize the trolley system's not for everyone, and Uber would be more convenient. I think the research that I did, and I think there is a misconception out there. I think it was last year or so that the county did speak out against Uber, and I think that's maybe what stuck in everybody's mind. But it might just simply be supply and demand. I think in order to see it happen, you just have to have more users. Once the demand is here, if there is any legalities to be worked out, they'll work them out. So I think if we want Uber, we just have to encourage everyone to download the app. Even if you don't use it, download it, and then they'll recognize how many users they have in a particular area. Then the demand will be there. So,
Sure.
So yeah, by all means.
Would anyone from the public like to make a comment or ask a question about Uber? Sure.
James Morris. I live in Parker, Florida. I used to live in Lynn Haven. But Uber is one of the fastest growing startup businesses in the world. It really is. And it connects drivers offering rides and passengers seeking them online. The company does not own these cars. They're owned by the drivers. They have to be certain cars. They have to be newer cars. They have to be clean. Consumers enjoy the ride sharing. The cost is much less than traditional. To go from Tyndall Air Force Base to the airport is anywhere between $60 to $75 by taxi. It's approximately $20 by Uber. Another advantage, transactions are performed electronically, so there's no cash exchanging hands, so people won't get robbed. Users can check the profile of a driver before selecting them. The drivers may also rate their passengers. So the tip is, you don't leave a tip with them, you leave a review. Ride-sharing businesses would supplement the current transportation system, such as our trolleys and taxi companies. A resident of your city that uses the trolley system to get back and forth to work, a child gets sick or the boss wants them to stay at work, or that doctor's appointment took longer than normal, and the trolley system shuts down at 8 p.m. and it doesn't run on Sunday. So like Margot was saying, that there's people that can't work on Sundays at Pier Park because of this. 100%, almost 100% of this local income stays locally in the economy. Uber and Lyft sharing is in Fort Walton, Tallahassee. I know that it was just opened up in Fort Walton just recently, October 1st. Bay County does not need to ignore this changing market. We can't stop the innovation. We need to embrace ways to help small businesses get started. This is one way to help grow our economy from the bottom up. Instead of increased competition, lower cost to consumers, and promote changes towards better service. The only thing we're going to need to do is lower the expectations for taxi drivers, where they're the same as Uber, because it's not fair for taxi drivers to have a higher rate to do. So it's going to make them more competitive as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else have anything to say about Uber? Sounds like Lynn Haven's all on board. Sounds great. Okay, for the rest of the mayor's report, just a couple of things. I did attend the Lynn Haven Planning Board meeting on October the 4th. And I'll just say briefly that I met with Commissioner Shad and something that he led with Cub Scouts, and that's all I'll say because I don't want to take away from your report. And had an opportunity to meet with Deer Point Elementary Principal Becky Reeder and district personnel for science and STEM, Katie McCurdy. And we met with Doug Hadaway, who's the representative with our new 90-plus acre ecological park. And we did some wonderful planning, and the children from Deer Point Elementary are going to be involved hands-on with the architects, the engineers, the construction phases. They're going to get to enter into a sort of partnership, drawing pictures of what they think that the park theme should be, what the playground should look like. So there's going to be quite a partnership between our Lynn Haven schools. Other schools are going to get an opportunity as well, working with Doug Hadaway and this park. So I thought that was really exciting. Had an opportunity to meet with Joel Schubert, our city manager, and Maria Stout-Tate, our leisure services director, as well as some of her staff, to talk more about our Lynn Haven first annual Christmas parade, which is going to be the first Saturday in December. And it's going to be quite exciting. And then just today, had an opportunity, I met with a member of our community who was interested in beginning an art gallery or a center for the arts on Florida Avenue. So some exciting meetings, and it's been a great few weeks. Finally, by email today, we were all notified of the DOT issuance of the grant in the amount of $268,000 for our Rails to Trails project that's been, in the works for a long time. And I just wanted to take a moment, and a former commissioner is here who worked long and hard and kept that project in front of the commission and in front of the past commission and this one. And I wanted to make sure that she receives the credit and the appreciation that she deserves, and that's former Commissioner Francis Witkoff. If you would please stand and let us give you a round of applause. Thank you for being here. And Commissioner Rodney Friend, who's our representative to the TPO, Bay County TPO, has also been working very hard with this project, and I just wanted to recognize him with a round of applause as well. And then finally, to end today's mayor's report, I didn't mean for it to be quite so long, we have with us former Mayor Walter Kelly. If you'd please stand and let us recognize you, Walter Kelly. Thank you. And that ends my report, Commissioner Shad. I'll let you take over.
As the mayor said a little while ago, we were very privileged last week to entertain about 14 or 15 Webelos. Now, for those of you that are not in scouting, that is a transition phase from a Cub Scout to a regular Scout. And their leader contacted me and said that they would like to meet with city officials to find out more about how a city is run, how it's organized, and how you qualify for different things. So we scheduled a meeting for last Thursday night. Mayor was in attendance. And it was very informal. What I did, since there was a relatively small group, I alternated and let each of the Webelos sit up here in our seats. And then I went down the line and kind of explained who sat where and what their responsibilities were. And the mayor got a chance to talk to them and explain to them certain aspects of things that could be done. You probably picked up, Mayor, on the same thing that I did. These are all young men, boys. They're more interested in the security, having read so much about the police shootings and everything like that. So I know she responded with some questions when they asked, did we permit guns in here? And after you left, I got several questions related to security too. But it was a good meeting in that they, I think, left with a little better understanding of what a city is all about and what our responsibilities are, and the fact that we have legal representation here at each of our meetings to continue to advise us. None of us pretend to know from a legal standpoint all the pitfalls that are out there. So we depend on our legal arm to acknowledge us. The city manager got a chance to talk to them. And they normally meet for about an hour. So 59 minutes later, I brought it to a conclusion so they could get out on time. But it's a nice group of kids. Lots and lots of questions. I mean, every time you ask something, hand go up and ask for a question. And sometimes you had 5 or 6 hands up at the same time. But I think it went very well. And we're fortunate to have a group like that and their parents that live in our city that are interested enough in the city to bring their children in to learn more about city government. The other thing I'd like to report is that last week I attended the Gulf Power Economic Forum. Now that's a forum that's been put on for almost 20 years now. Most of the time it's been held over in the Destin-Sandestin area. This time they held it out at Bay Point. And one of the more interesting things in attending that every year is it gives you kind of a leg up on what's coming down the pike in the future. Now, changes are going to happen whether we like it or not. But they're very good about explaining trends in business, trends in transportation, I mean, you name it. One of the more interesting things that they pointed out is that people of my generation, as we die out, our values are gone. The new generation doesn't have the same values that we do. And I'm not making it as a criticism. I'm just saying that's an ongoing part of life. So that we as a city need to start thinking, as we have these people reach their maturity and become active citizens, how do we deal with their set of values and what they want as opposed to the way we currently do it? They pointed out that the younger generation is coming along. They don't like meetings. They don't like to go to meetings. There's a lot of things they don't like to do. They're very technically oriented. So I think in the future, we're going to have to look more from a technology standpoint of saying, well, we're proud we've got one-stop shop here now. If you come in and you want to do business with us and go build something here, you got one place to go. I think we're going to need to carry it to the next step and put a lot of this stuff online, right? So that they don't have to physically come in and they can conduct a lot of their business. We already offer people the opportunity, since these meetings are televised, to watch it on TV. But I think we're going to have to go online with some of these things. So that there's just a multitude of things that are coming down the pike that we need to seriously look at. Haven't had a chance to talk to Joel. I did meet a couple of students out from Gulf State College, and they weren't part of the program, but they were out in the lobby. Gulf State College offers a drone certification program. Now, that is another exploding area, drones. And I think all of you have seen on TV, read in the paper about drones, the concern for drones and this, that, and the other. There's a gold mine there for our city to work with the state college and work with them on providing space for them to have students and people learn how to operate drones. It takes space. That's one thing we have in our recreation, in the ballparks area. We could work with them in trying to get a better trained public out there with drones, and I can foresee that if we work with them in the right vein, they can help us put in place the necessary legislation or ordinances that cause a lot of people concerns with the use of drones within the city. The other thing I can see is, gee, wouldn't it be neat if we provided them space and had, quote, a certified drone field that they could have drone races, drone acrobatics using those things? So, I mean, the kids latch on to it a lot faster than we do, believe me. And there's kids out there right now that have drones that are using them. So that was a very, very informative, well worth attending forum to go to every year. And I just can't recommend it highly enough to anybody that wants to attend. It's open. I mean, if you want to pay the registration fee, you can attend, but you're going to get a day and a half's worth of excellent information. Not necessarily on what's happening today, but what's coming down the future, which enables us as some of the civic leaders to take the initiative and say, hey, we can't change it overnight, but we better start in some of these areas. So that's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Shad. Commissioner Ashbrook?
I'd like to mention three things. Is the mic on? Okay. First, I met with a representative who will explain what she is here for with Royal American. We'll be getting a presentation on that since the last meeting. We'll get that today. And I'd like to thank publicly a couple of individuals that have kind of shepherded a project through, and I think it's been out in the media, the newspaper I know. We were successful, and I won't use we, I guess they were successful, our city manager and Chris Forehand, with wrestling some money away from government in the restore money, which seems like forever. I don't know how long ago that started, but it took a long time for them to get around to approving the project. But it'll be a big boon to the restoration of Porter Park, and also the timeliness that they were able to do to get the request in I think we had a June 30th deadline to get the request in, Francis, for the money to get our piece, or at least an initial piece, for the Rails to Trails. So I'd like to thank those two fellows for being timely and staying with the Restore project, because at any given time that can be taken away from you sometimes. So it was nice to kind of get a seal put on that. So thanks, fellas.
Thank you, Commissioner Ashbrook. Commissioner Barnes?
I just want to echo what Commissioner Ashbrook was saying. I know Chris has worked extremely hard, and I know Joel was in on it as well, in getting that restore money. And it took some time, and for them to put this plan together so that Lynn Haven could be the recipient of those funds. And so, Chris, I want to publicly thank you for the hard work that you've done for it as well. That's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Friend.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, and thanks for mentioning the Rails for Trail. It really is exciting news. Rails for Trails is something that I'd picked up from Commissioner Witkoff, and I promised her that I would continue to work on it. And receiving those funds was another step in that process. And as I understand it, we're the first recipients of funds from that particular program in Florida for Northwest Florida. So it's a great accomplishment. And again, to thank those that were involved. city manager, city engineer, and Miss Linda for jumping through all the hoops of these applications and timelines and deadlines and all these other things in order to get that application processed. But I really appreciate everyone's hard work, and I'm excited to continue that process and that program for Commissioner Witkoff. Also, just quickly, we do have a 5K, Kensall Park, for breast cancer awareness, and invite everyone out. 7:30, 7:45, we'll be running Kensall Park. Thank you, Mayor.
And what's the date of the 5K?
Saturday.
This coming Saturday?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. At this time, the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a few announcements and then a couple of presentations to follow. I guess I want to echo the same sentiments of the commission. I'd like to thank the mayor and the commission and our city engineer for the $450,000 in Porter Park. I'd also like to announce that we have a new ADA playground open out there, and thank you to Leisure Services for tracking that down and not finally, but getting it installed. It's our ADA compliant playground. It's a pretty sizable ship that's just across from where the boat ramp is down at Porter Park. So we're excited about that. We look forward to seeing more ADA compliant features and amenities throughout our parks in the city. I do want to mention the Bay County Half Cent. There is a website out there that the county put out there and maintains. You'll hear a lot of that between now and November 8th. It's got a lot of good information. Just briefly, it means, or it's projected to mean $1.7 million for the city of Lynn Haven over a 10-year span. That means all the roads, and we already have a 10-year program or a plan for all the city streets in Lynn Haven. Did I say? You said 1.7. Okay, I'm sorry. It's 1.7 a year, but over that 10-year span, of course, thank you, Mayor, it means $17 million for the city of Lynn Haven. There's an oversight committee. I think one of the most important features that doesn't get a lot of play is the fact that it's not just the citizens of Lynn Haven or Bay County citizens that use our roads. It's a lot of folks from out of town, whether they're, Lynn Haven's their destination point or not, but this would allow the citizens of Lynn Haven as well as Bay County to not shoulder the full burden of maintaining this infrastructure. But said all that to say, there's a pretty good website out there. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me on how specifically it would impact Lynn Haven, but there's a very specific plan on what we would use the $17 million on over the 10 years, and it's a study, and it's very specific. If you have any questions, please contact me. There's also, at the sports park, we just installed solar lights out there at the parking lot. I believe it's probably the only parking lot in Bay County, maybe, that has such extensive use of solar lights, but that's been a need for a long time. It's a safety issue, among others, so we're proud to have that out there and working now. Bears. Once or twice a year, we have encounters with bears, and it can get, pretty strenuous for our citizens as well as law enforcement alike. Our PD is very limited on what we can do. We pick up the phone when we call Florida Wildlife. There's only so much we can do besides ensure the safety of the citizens. But we promised, and I thank the PD for working with the Florida Wildlife. We're going to have a living Bearwise presentation that's going to be open to the public. It's going to be like a workshop. It is going to be Thursday, October 27th at 6 p.m. in this room. And they're going to, along with Florida Wildlife, they're going to be here to educate you on what you can do, do's and don'ts, what to do if you do encounter a bear, how to prevent those encounters, why they're there. And I think most importantly, and this is very tough to explain to a citizen over the weekend or at night when they say, why can't they just come out of here and take care of this thing? And, we're required by laws to comport to those laws, and we can't go out there and take care of it like they maybe could have back, a few decades ago. So I think that's going to be very informative. I encourage anybody that's interested to come out and see that. McDonald's, went to McDonald's this morning. I think about every city has a McDonald's, but I was excited to see the improvements that are being made to our McDonald's. You've probably seen the construction. They're going to stay open throughout it. They're essentially taking the outdoor playground, which used to be in the front of it that you see from 77, and making it an indoor playground. And I spoke with the owner today, and he described it as McDonald's meets Disney World. And he said the only one like it, there's not one like it in Bay County. You have to go down to Orlando to find one like it. So that's great. They're doing that in Lynn Haven, so look forward to that. The Dropbox, I say this, there's a lot more folks that use our Dropbox for utility payments than I realize. If you just sit out there and watch, you'll see a lot of the folks come through here. And while we gave all the kudos to our city engineer, this is a design I wish I'd have been here when they worked on, but you come through and you have to turn around and you have to drop it off. It's on this side of this building. Well, that box, I think, is probably a couple decades old, too. So we removed it, and we have a box right there on City Hall. It'd be on the east side of that same alley, so you don't have to come in and pull a UE or, run across the street real quick and dodge traffic. So just a heads up, if you do use our drop box, it's actually integrated into the facade of City Hall on the east side where you would enter or exit, where you usually make the payments. And my last announcement is I just want to remind everyone there's a workshop planned for the 24th, and that workshop, that's a Monday, is going to cover both the splash pad discussion as well as the special events. We're bringing that back as the commission requested for details regarding special events. Having said all that, we do have a young man that took the initiative, Officer Anglin, if you're here. Parker Walsingham, could you step forward?
Hold it. That works. Hello, everyone. I'm Officer Anglin with Lynn Haven Police Department in the Community and Neighborhood Services Division. And this beside me is Mr. Parker Walsingham. He is a student at Deer Point Elementary School in Lynn Haven. What grade are you in now, Parker? First grade. Okay, first grade. This summer, as you know, there's been a lot of negative comments about law enforcement recently in every state across the nation. We've had a lot of run-ins with different people. You've had a lot of negative commentary on the news, and unfortunately, it has actually discouraged a lot of officers as they go about their jobs every day. These people are going out there and they're risking their lives and not knowing if they're going to go home to their family, and they're doing it for the public. And to know that, unfortunately, when you go out there, you're going to get more rude comments and more things. It is discouraging as a population. Well, this young man happened to see it on the TV and saw everything, and he didn't like the way that law enforcement was being treated. So he and his grandmother went to the store and they bought several bags for us. And they actually painted every single bag with a blue handprint and put a poem on each one for every officer that we had at Lynn Haven Police Department. Inside of these bags, he included candy of all different sorts that went with the poem. I actually wish I had it with me right now. Super cute. But he spent a lot of time making every single bag and tying it, each one with a ribbon, and brought it in to us and gave it to each of our officers individually. So we're here to recognize him for the kindness that he did present to us, because you'll never know how much it meant to every single person to receive that, and the fact that he's only in first grade and he's already doing this type of kindness and everything for us. So we are now making him an honorary junior police officer with Lynn Haven Police Department. Lieutenant Brian Blaylock is going to present him with his official Lynn Haven police hat, his police shirt, and a certificate of appreciation. And just so you know, the only people who have this he is now one of only 2 people that actually has Lynn Haven police gear that is not a Lynn Haven officer, has been employed. So, Thank you.
Thank you, Officer Anglin and Lieutenant Blaylock. Mitchell Hood, one last presentation and I'm done. Could you please step forward? Mitch is our October Employee of the Month. He is our stormwater foreman. This is the fellow that, and fortunately, we only had about 2 or 3 events this year where he's the fellow that shows up at your house in the middle of the night when you've got a clogged culvert or you're having a stormwater issue. He's the one that has to shoulder that burden with his staff. He also assists with the street department and everything they do. And if that's not enough, he also drives a dump truck whenever we're down a dump truck driver. You have any other? We love the cross train, but that's pretty impressive. All other duties assigned. Obviously a great attitude and great work ethic, and we appreciate you and proud to have you as our Employee of the Month for August. I don't know why I'm thinking we're a couple months behind here.
Appreciate it too, man.
Thank you, Mitch.
Thank y'all.
And that's it, Mayor. Thank you.
We've all been a bit long-winded today, but we are very excited about so many things going on in Lynn Haven. So now, with trepidation, is there a city attorney's report?
I'm happy to say there's no report.
I was just teasing. Okay, moving on to item number 7 on our agenda is a public hearing. And so at this time at 4:35, I do declare this public hearing to be open. The proposed CDBG grant application for the 7th Street sewer line replacement. And we have a report from Mr. Denny Dingman, correct?
Good evening. Dennis Dingman, Summer Professional Services. Nice way to start an evening. Tonight is the second public hearing for the CDBG FFY 2016 application for the City of Lynn Haven. If I could, I'd like to pass this around. These are just some sheets that I would ask you to sign. I have to turn them in with the application. So if you would, there are 2 sheets. If you just sign them and pass them on, I don't need very many signatures, but I do need some. The second public hearing is held to consider whether the City of Lynn Haven shall proceed with the submission of a CDBG grant. I do want to mention that the state has not issued a proceed date on the cycle. So we don't know when the 2016 CDBG cycle will begin. We do expect it this year, but they haven't announced it yet. This second public hearing, however, will cover for when the application is opened. The first public hearing was held on September 19th, and at that time you made a motion and vote to proceed with the development of an application. Also on that day, I met with your Citizen Advisory Task Force, and that CATF recommended that the city submit an application for this cycle. There's also a resolution coming up later in the meeting, and that resolution is actually called an enabling resolution, and you'll make a motion and vote on that as well. Okay, the CDBG program really is intended to do 3 things: provide benefit to low and moderate income persons, prevent or eliminate slum or blight, and to meet a need of recent origin. What that really means is if there is an opportunity for economic development or something happens like a disaster, CDBG funds can be used for that money. Now, in working with your staff since the first public hearing, it has been determined that a neighborhood revitalization grant would be the best fit for an application for the city. And that neighborhood revitalization grant can do things such as paving, drinking water improvements, sewer improvements, stormwater, things like that. The grant, when written, has to benefit at least 51% of the residents that the money is going to be used for the infrastructure on. So the area in which the sewer would need to be implemented or rehabilitated would have to meet a 51% need benefit. Now, I've conducted surveys on West 7th Avenue, and that area where the sewer for the CDBG funds will be used for that replacement does meet that 51% low to moderate income benefit population. And so what the city's application is proposing is to provide about 5,760 feet of sewer between 8 and 10 inches to replace what's there now. And it'll run along West 7th Ave from Kentucky to Alley A, which is the alley in between Florida and Ohio. So that replacement will be done. There will be obviously road repavement that needs to be done because of the digging up of the existing pipe. There will be 24 sewer manholes involved and 74 sewer laterals that will need to be replaced as well. The grant is for $750,000, of which $690,000 will be used for construction, and then $60,000 for administration. That is the second public hearing. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the board for Mr. Dingman?
Mayor, could I just, two quick points. One, the project that Mr. Dingham is talking about certainly is high on our list because the I&I, the infiltration with these original wastewater pipes certainly has a lot to do with the capacity our AWT, our sewer plant, has to handle. In other words, when it rains, our capacity, or not our capacity, our volume
goes up.
like triples. So, I mean, there's a domino effect here. We were able to stave off the expansion project, and we're hoping that this project will also have a positive impact in decreasing the volume of our AWT plant. The only other thing I wanted to point out is just for record keeping, or when we get to item 17 in the agenda, I believe the commission in making a motion has to make the motion word for word as you've got?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Are there any questions or concerns from the public? Yes, Ms. Harris.
How old are those existing sewer lines?
Before I was born, so they're pretty old.
1927.
Yeah, 1920s, I believe. Yes.
1920s. So
Yes.
Original.
And if there are any further questions, if you the podium. Any other concerns? And there appear to be none. As the city manager pointed out, this will come up on an item during the regular agenda. And so at this time, it's 4:41, and this public hearing is closed. Moving on to item number 8. This begins at 4:41, and the Fair Housing Training Workshop, the CDBG requirement. And again, this is Mr. Dingman.
Yes. As part of the CDBG application process, there are fair housing requirements, meaning fair housing workshops that need to be conducted. One needs to be conducted prior to the application being submitted, and then after the city has awarded its grant, there will be fair housing activities that continue throughout the implementation of the grant. The purpose of it is to inform elected officials and citizenry about fair housing, their fair housing rights. Now, the city has a fair housing ordinance, and you can get that on their website. The state law, statute 760, deals with fair housing, and also the Federal Civil Rights Act of 1968, as amended in 1988, all deal with fair housing laws. And it's probably easiest to just read what the law states. Under this law, it's against the law to refuse to rent to you or sell you housing, to tell you housing is unavailable when in fact it is available, to show you apartments or homes in certain neighborhoods only. It's unlawful to advertise housing to preferred groups of people only, or to refuse to provide you with information regarding mortgage loans, deny you a mortgage loan, or impose different terms and conditions on a mortgage loan. It's unlawful to deny you property insurance or to conduct property appraisals in a discriminatory manner. It's unlawful to refuse to make certain modifications or accommodations for persons with mental or physical disabilities, including persons recovering from alcohol and substance abuse and HIV/AIDS related illnesses. It's also against the law to fail to design or construct housing in an accessible manner, or to harass, coerce, intimidate, or interfere with anyone exercising or assisting someone else in their fair housing rights. It's unlawful to do this based on race, color, national origin, religion, sex, familial status, meaning if you have children, or if you have a handicap. If you feel that your fair housing rights have been violated, there is a website online, and you can call me. I'd be happy to provide you with that website. The city has access to this website as well, and there's an 800 number you can call, which is 800-669-9777. And they will assist you in determining whether or not your rights have been violated and if further proceeding is needed.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board regarding the Fair Housing Training Workshop? Any comments or questions from the public? Okay, at this time, we will declare this workshop closed at 4:44.
Thank you.
Item number 9 is a public hearing for a development order application for North Bay Haven Elementary School, DO 16-5. We will begin at 4:44, and this is a quasi-judicial hearing, so our attorney may need to do.
Yes, ma'am. Items number 9 and 15 are quasi-judicial hearings of the City of Lynn Haven. So if any members of the commission have had any ex parte communications regarding this project, please go ahead and disclose them on the record now.
I've had none.
I've had none.
I've had none.
I've had none.
And if anyone plans on presenting any testimony before the commission, please go ahead and stand and raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth upon penalty of perjury?
I do.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Ms. Richard?
This is a development order application for North Bay Haven Charter School. I'm just waiting for my slide to come up, but I'll tell you about it while I'm waiting for it to come up. The applicant is requesting development order approval to be able to proceed with construction of an elementary school, which will be phase 2 of the North Bay Haven Charter Academy School development on the Mills Bayou Traditional Neighborhood Development site. The school is located on Buccaneer Drive off Highway 390. The phase will consist of 57,000 square feet of additional classrooms housed in 2-story buildings, plus an additional 81,226 square feet of parking. There will also be additional landscaping improvements to accompany the new constructed areas, plus some additional internal roadways such as a loop road. The stormwater facilities to accommodate the increased impervious surface areas were constructed with phase 1 and so are already in place. The increased student numbers and accompanying increase in traffic were also addressed prior to the development order approval for phase 1. So those things don't have to be, they're not a concern as far as this development order application. The applicant is Larry Bollinger, CEO of the North Bay Haven Charter Academy. The agent is Chris Forehand from Panhandle Engineering, who is here tonight if you have any specific questions regarding the site plan and the engineering. It's traditional neighborhood development. The size of the area that we're looking at with phase 2 is approximately 4.73 acres. And as I mentioned, classrooms, parking, and road changes are what are going to be occurring. This shows you can't see it very well with the red, doesn't really stand out well, but this is the site. Looking at the aerial here, can you see the red arrow on the top left? That kind of dirt area is where this phase is proposed to be, where the elementary school is going. The rest of it is already there and is already operating. And this is the site plan. The area, the dark area at the bottom, the darker shaded area is the classrooms, and then that paler grey area is the additional proposed parking. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Forehand, did you have comments you wanted to make?
Good evening. I'm Chris Forehand with Panhandle Engineering. I'm just here to answer any questions that you might have about the development. As Amanda said, it's all the stormwater was handled in the phase 1. Traffic was also handled in phase 1 development with the new traffic signal. So most of those the big ticket items were handled previously.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? There appear to be none.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. This public hearing will be closed at 4:48. Items 10 through 15 on our agenda are consent agenda items. I will read through all of the items and ask for a motion in a second, and then at that time, if anyone from the board has a question on an individual item, or then if anyone from the public has a question or a concern, you'll have an opportunity to express that. The consent agenda, item number 10 is the approval of the minutes from September 19th, the regular meeting. Number 11, to approve the purchase of a garbage truck, backhoe, and pickup trucks for Public Works. Item number 12, approve Panhandle Engineering Task Order number 14425 for engineering services related to shoreline stabilization at Kensal Park in the amount of $19,850. Item number 13, authorize submittal of a Coastal Partnership Initiative grant for the Kensal Park shoreline stabilization. Item number 14, approve submittal of grant application FEMA assistance to firefighters for the purchase of SCBA's and air cylinders. Item number 15, approve development order application for North Bay Haven Elementary School, DO 16-5. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
I'll second.
There's been a motion and a second. At this time, are there any questions on any of these items or discussion from the board? Are there questions or discussion from the public on any of these items? And there appear to be none. Mr. Schubert, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, and so the consent agenda has been approved. Moving on to new business, item number 16 is to approve the $50,000 expenditure from the sewer budget for leverage in the CDBG application for the 7th Street Sewer Line Replacement Project and additional funds if required to complete the project. And I would remind you that if you are to make this motion, to be sure to make it as it is worded in this item.
I'll make that motion and have the motion be worded exactly as presented to us.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions or discussion from the board for item number 16?
What's our exposure? Because the way it reads, it says, and additional funds if required to complete the project. So, I mean, is this an open-ended thing, and they come up and say, well, we need another $500,000? We're going to have to give it to them? What's the cap? What's the restrictions?
This is the minimum, this is the commitment, the $50,000. I believe, and Mr. Baker can help me with this too, I believe, we won't know until the project's bid, but I believe it was estimated at $1 million. I mean, certainly this project would be sandwiched under 2 fiscal years, but we need a minimum of 50.
All right, if the request comes in for additional funds, will that come back before the commission?
Yes, yes, sir.
Are there other questions or concerns from the board? Are there questions or concerns from the public? Okay, at this time, Mr. Schubert, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. So item number 16 is approved. Item number 17 is Resolution 2016-10-665, the approval of proposed CDBG grant application for 7th Street sewer line replacement, and I believe this needs to be read exactly as well for the proposal.
I move approval.
I'll second.
It's a resolution that needs to be read.
I neglected to ask for the resolution to be read. Resolution 2016-10-665. So if the city manager will please read the resolution, and then if you would please make your motion again and your second. Thank you.
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, authorizing the mayor or mayor pro tem to make application to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity for approval of the city's Community Development Block Grant and to adopt the city's comprehensive plan as its community development plan, providing an effective date and for other purposes.
Thank you. And would you please make your motion and second again? Thank you.
I'll move approval.
And I'll second.
Thank you. Are there any questions or discussion from the board regarding this resolution? There appear to be none. Are there any questions or discussion from the public regarding this resolution? And there appear to be none. Mr. Schubert, would you please call the roll for acceptance of this resolution?
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes, and so item 17 is approved. Item number 18 is discussion and possible action regarding the enclave at North Shore Conceptual Site Plan, and I believe Ms. Richard has a presentation for this item.
All that you have had before you a number of times, requests from different entities that have been looking for conceptual plan approval for various types of senior living or affordable apartments, so that what they need is your conceptual approval so that they can apply to the state. We have a proposed project here that has never been before you before. We've had others that come back continually. This is the first time for this one. The proposed project is the enclave at North Shore, and it would be a rent-restricted senior living community for people 55 years and over. So it's a senior living community. The applicant is Royal American Development, Inc., and we do have representation here tonight if you have specific questions. The number of units which would be proposed is 100 units in the apartment complex. And the location is adjacent to the existing reserve, you know, the reserve on 390, across from Main Avenue on 390. And the applicant, as I mentioned, is applying for financing from Florida Housing Finance Corporation. And this is part of the application process, the obtaining of city approval of the conceptual site plan. So at this stage, you're not actually saying that you are approving the development. If they were to be lucky in being awarded, then they would have to go through the whole development order approval process. So they'd have to bring us a development order, site plans, which would go through the planning commission and then come to you. This is just you looking at the concept and saying whether you approve that or not. This is the site here. So where that big green star is where this community is proposed to be. And immediately north of that is the reserve. So the entrance would be in through the existing entrance in the reserve, and then you would just come on down. So you wouldn't see this from the road. This is a site plan that was given to us, and it's kind of tricky to see anything really on this one. So I enlarged this portion of it, so you can see that the buildings would be in the center, and the parking around the outside, and this is just conceptual, but this is what they're proposing the apartments to look like. There's a variety of different sizes as far as the bedrooms are concerned, and if you have any specific questions, then you probably would be better off asking the agent. Thank you.
Are there any questions from the board for Ms. Richard or for the engineer from Royal American?
Yes, Mayor. I would like to ask from the developer a little more information on this type of housing, if you would. And I apologize, I didn't call you back to get more information. But what is this type of housing? What is it classified as? What does it fall into the world of, let's say, marketeers that are reaching into our community to see if they want to do business with our community? How does it fall in that?
Well, first, let me introduce myself. My name is Kim Murphy, and I'm Senior Vice President of Royal American Development. I've been with Royal American for 28 years, and I've done this type development during my entire tenure. Thank you for hearing tonight our conceptual site plan. What we're proposing is a 100-unit, 55, I guess I hit that. Maybe I could go back to the elevation, but thank you. 55 plus, it is financed through 9% housing credits. It's a competitive process through Florida Housing Finance Agency. Once or twice a year, we submit applications for funding. It's a highly competitive program. They have $12.5 million slated at this RFA, and there will likely be over 100 applications submitted. The applications, the developers are savvy enough where we all score perfect scores. So lottery numbers are assigned to these applications. This is one of the reasons why we come back over and over again. If you're not lucky, you don't get funded. But We are building this exact development down in unincorporated Osceola County. And it is a 55-plus development. It's 1 and 2 bedrooms. From the executive summary that you have there, the unit sizes for a 1-bedroom are 673 square feet, and the 2-bedroom, 952 square feet. The rents, we have 10% of our units are set aside for the lower income, 40% of the area median income. So those rents would be $314 for a 1-bedroom and $372 for a 2-bedroom. The remaining 90% of the units are set aside for seniors that make 60% or more of the area median income, and they range from $521 on the 1-bedroom to $620 on the 2, and that's net rents. That's net of utility allowances that are established. The housing credits, if we're awarded, we take the housing credits to market and we sell them. We right now is a pretty profitable, a good pricing. We can get about $1.10 per credit. We're asking for 1.5 million in annual credits. That equates to $16 million that goes into the project to build it. So it's not HUD housing. It's not rent subsidized, rent assisted housing. Housing credits are equity that is put into the development to build it. Therefore, we have a lower first mortgage. Our first mortgage is contemplated at $2 million. That helps us keep our rents low. We're committed, we signed a document that's recorded that we will keep these rents as they change through the years, but it will be perpetuity. So this is senior housing that will be available for a very long time. We have annual inspections that are done by the state, so we maintain the quality of safe, decent, and affordable housing for the residents of Lynn Haven. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, for the most, so what I got out of a lot of that, and I really appreciate the information you provided to us. So basically, we're talking about 10 units total that would fall into that affordable housing category or subsidized.
No, actually, all 100 would be.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, all 100.
I thought
It's
it was
just
only
that
40% or.
40% of the area median income is
Okay.
for 10 of the units, and then the 90 units will be at people that make 60% of the area median income.
So you're taking basically the entire 100 rooms would be affordable housing.
Yes.
And then we're breaking it down into
To
how they would
lower.
qualify
Yeah.
for the individual units.
Right. You know, individuals on Social Security,
Right.
disability would likely qualify for the very low
Right.
10%, 10 units.
Thank
Any
you
other
very much.
questions? I'm sorry.
No, ma'am. Thank
From
you
the
very
board?
much.
Okay. Any questions from the public? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And so my understanding is if there is a motion made this evening, it's simply for the conceptual site concept. Okay. Is there a
I'll second.
There's been a motion and a second. We've already had some discussion and questions. Does anyone else want to say anything else before we go to the vote? From the public? Okay, Mr. Schubert, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. So item number 18 is approved. And then our final item for this evening's meeting is public commentary. At this time, if you are a Lynn Haven resident and you have any item that you would like to discuss, you may approach the podium. Sure, come on up.
Joanne Navarrete, 109 Lakeview Terrace, The Meadows. I just have a comment or comments regarding fast food restaurants on 77. Who determines the number of fast food chains that we get in Lynn Haven? It seems like it's been a long time since we've really gotten a nice restaurant. We've been here 8 years, and the only one I know recently is G. Foley's, and that's Panama City. I think if we would have nice dining, you would get the beach traffic as well as vacationers to come over to our side, and as well as Lynn Haven residents enjoying it. That would bring more money, I believe, to the city as well. So I'm just curious. No reflection on your comment about McDonald's remodeling. I think that's great too. But it sort of looks like an exit ramp off of major highways when you come onto 77.
I can tell you that I've been on this commission for 20 years, and we have tried to get sit-down restaurants to come. We just haven't had anybody make application. We have been trying to do this for a long time, and I know all of us feel the same thing, feel the same way that you feel. But we just haven't had anyone to come and make application, and we're trying to draw them here because I agree with you.
Do they ever give feedback as to why they don't express an interest, or?
We don't know. You know.
I'm sorry, were you finished?
Yeah, go ahead.
I do have a couple of comments that I would like to make about that. I'm with you. I would love to see fine dining in Lynn Haven, and there are a couple of things. One, I think that's holding us back is in some cases because of water pressure that sometimes restaurants are required to have. And another, there's several ideas. In fact, this past week, the city manager and I sat with someone and spoke about the possibility. There's several possibilities that this particular person who's doing some development had in mind for the historic district of Lynn Haven for fine dining. And then one final, this is something that I've said over and over that I am pursuing personally, and I'm looking for help in helping to get this, but I would love to see a grant. It's kind of a different concept, and I haven't even mentioned it before the commission, so this is as good a time as any because we're in a public, under the sunshine laws. Something like Uncle Ernie's that's downtown, if the city owned it and it was at Kensall Park, there on that deep water where a boat could pull up for fine dining, and maybe we own the structure and lease it out to a chef like a Chef Paul. That's in my head, and that's certainly something I would love to see. I believe that we could get fine dining here. We have the country club, which is a restricted access, but I think it's something that we have to pursue, and I think that it's being looked at not only by me, but I think other members of the commission as well. I've been speaking with people, and I know the city manager has because I sat in. So I think it's on the horizon, and I think it's close.
Okay.
I would like to simply, the simplistic answer is it's a derivative of capitalism. Okay, the demographics are not here that are supportive, that would allow somebody to invest their money, be it a chain or an individual, so that they can make a profit. And until that occurs, there won't be anything as far as whatever you want to define as fine dining. You might get another chain, like a steakhouse or a Longhorn or something.
There are some nice upscale chains too.
But it's demographics. These companies do not come in and invest multi-millions of dollars on a whim unless they know they're going to fill that restaurant. We've had a couple of failures of individuals who have tried to do nicer restaurants here, but it's nothing more complex than that. It's like building a hotel. You either have the heads to fill it or you don't. And the same way is true of a restaurant. It's a difficult business, and they just have not had somebody come in that wants to plunk down that kind of money on a let's see if it will work basis. Investors just don't put up with that.
Okay.
Mayor, if I may.
Commissioner Friend?
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate your comments, and to be honest with you, that's part of the reason I ask about the future development that we just spoke about. Same thing that I've learned, demographics. When I've talked to folks, it's demographics, it's medium income. They want to know, they want rooftops, it all comes down to demographics. And unfortunately, most that I've talked to, they don't look at like we do. They don't look at Bay County. I crossed the bridge. Bridge has never been a distraction for me. But they look at Lynn Haven. And then when they look at that market, they do the demographics of that market. They look at the income, they look at the rooftops, they look at all that, and that's how they make their decision. So it's just like Commissioner Ashbrook said, it's hard for us to recruit those type of chains when we just don't have the demographics. That being said, I remember a fantastic place was Ottman's house, which is where Po Folks is now. And I think that's really what we got to do is we got to entice an individual to do something like that. So, just saying.
Can I mention one more thing?
That's what we really need is a specialized individual that's willing to take that risk.
And I just wanted to add one more thing. I would respectfully disagree about the demographics. I don't know that we're going to get an O'Charlie's or a TGI Fridays or a chain. But if you were thinking of the same thing I was thinking when you said fine dining, I'm thinking more of an individual, something like the two ladies on Florida have opened Victoria.
Yes.
Prime rib on Valentine's Day to a full house.
Yes.
So I really do think that we can, it doesn't have to be large to be fine. And I think that things are changing. We know by statistics that when parks improve, that people will come. When we have more festivals and activities, they're going to come. And I think the demographics are changing in Lynn Haven. And this is just my thought. Another chain restaurant, I think, is the last thing we need. A boutique of fine dining. That's my opinion. It's not everyone's opinion, but it's what I'm hearing from people that I speak with. So
Right.
I think it's possible, and I think it's close.
Okay, because our 77 pretty much mirrors 23rd Street for Panama City as far as duplicate restaurants on both sides. You know, so-
Because you can't get a seat at lunch at Victoria's. We just
Right.
need more of those.
Right,
you know?
exactly.
So, okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else have something you'd like to bring up this evening? And I think our city manager has something he wanted to say. Come on forward, sir.
Yeah, just one last comment while this gentleman's approaching is, we're not satisfied with status quo. When we say we're looking into it, we really are looking into it. The most recent issue we addressed as far as attracting clients like that is we lowered our impact fees for commercial entities. So, what does that mean? We were at the top of the list. We took a look at it, did a study on it. We've reduced those impact fees 20 to 30%, depending on the use for commercial, which should make it more attractive as far as an initial investment to bring that kind of clientele in. But we are making a concerted effort at attracting that.
My name is William Carr, 1500 Massachusetts Avenue. I've attended some of the budget meetings for the next fiscal year. Not all of them, but I have sort of tried to keep my ear to the ground. And I understand there is a question as to some of the salaries that some of the upper echelon in this city make. I have a copy of the salaries for all the supervisors, directors, admin, whatever. And generally they look like they're probably well within line of any city of our size. I've gone on your Facebook page. I don't know that that is necessarily an official Lynn Haven Facebook page or if it's yours as mayor.
It's mine as mayor,
Okay.
but it's kind of, I am the mayor of Lynn Haven, so
Right.
what I'm saying on there is certainly
Right.
open to scrutiny and discussion.
I read some of the comments lately on there about the police department and some of the salaries that are, well, I guess, of the chief and some of his benefits. And considering his experience, I don't see anything wrong with those salary levels. In the last year, from what I understand, you've had 11 officers that have been recruited into this city, but that have left. So if you take, say, a rough estimate of $5,000 to train those officers, this city has lost $55,000 in that money that could have been well spent somewhere else. I think you need to take a hard look at next year's budget as far as the salary levels of entry levels of the police department. I know you've discussed the fire department, and that's fine, and we can't pay everybody everything they want. But some of the comments made on your Facebook page sort of bothered me a little bit because these people put their lives on the line every day, period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Are you referring to my comments
I'm
or to
talking
public?
about the comments on your Facebook
Okay,
page.
because my comments supported raises for entry level for police and firemen.
I haven't read all of them. I've read
Okay.
what I could read.
Okay.
I think some of them were pretty disparaging of the police department. I think they do a
I
great
saw
job.
there were really no comments about entry level. What the disparaging comments that are on my Facebook page are about some of the, it's the same, when I ran for mayor almost 2 years ago, I made comments about the fact that I thought there was a disparagement between upper level salaries for some positions and our entry level positions, not only for policemen and firemen, but for departments like leisure services and public works. And I will say that our city manager and I have had many at-length discussions. I do believe that he is sincerely trying to work on the salaries to bring about an appraisal system that's fair to all and to bring some of that disparagement into line. But there were many years, year after year after year, that certain employees within the city received a 5% raise year after year after year with no appraisal system in place, and that's what my negative comments were about.
And I understand that part, and that should be addressed. But by the same token, I don't think that you came to the defense of the police department as you should have as a representative of the mayor
I
of this
defended
city.
all the police officers and all the firefighters. My comments were that I believed we needed new leadership for our police department. That was the only negative
But the
comment I
leadership
made.
of the police department is still the police department. And if you're not going to protect the guy at the head, then those that are underneath him are not going to feel any protection.
I would respectfully say to you that the man who's at the head of the police department is not present at this meeting. He never attends these meetings.
Well, I saw him here once or twice when I've been here.
He came twice since I've been mayor,
and that
and
may
each
be-
time he
that may be
came
true.
to take opposition at something I was
That may
trying to
be
do.
true, but I don't know of any requirement where he is supposed to be here.
He
Is
has
there a
assigned.
requirement?
There is no requirement.
Okay, that's fine. All I'm saying is that
Your
looking at
public works director is here. Your leisure services director is here.
That's fine, but looking at your Facebook page and some of the comments that were made on there, by you not making a positive reply to what was adversely said against those people or those individuals or that department, then that tells me that that you're not behind the police department. I
am
understand
not
you
behind.
said. I
I
understand
am
you
not
said.
behind the methodology of our present police chief. I will say that publicly.
Well, and that's that.
Have you taken a tour of our police department?
But that reflects upon those underneath him.
I don't think so.
Well, I think it does. I mean, I'm expressing
That's
my
okay,
opinion
and I
as a citizen
appreciate
of
it.
Lynn Haven.
I appreciate your comments,
And
and I do appreciate
I think
it.
looking at this, I'm going to say they look like they're within line. Now, I don't know the benefits package. I have no idea what they get in benefits.
You might want to check.
And that's fine. I can check. But what I'm saying is some of these department heads don't make very much less than what he does. Now, I don't know how long they've been here, but I know he's been here 40 years? So time counts for something. I mean, that's just the way it is in any business, any department, anything.
I certainly respect your opinion.
And that's all I have to say. I just don't think that the facts are coming out like they should, and I think it's been one-sided against the police department.
Well, I will say just one more time that as the mayor, I brought about the first day ever, I brought it up and asked for approval for the first day to lift up on Patriots Day our fire department and police department for the city of Lynn Haven. It had never been done before. I stand 100% behind our firemen and our policemen. The only negative comment I made, and I stand behind it, is that I believe that we have the need for a new direction and new leadership for the Lynn Haven Police Department. And I do not change that opinion, and I'm sorry if it offends you.
And I understand that, and you can lift them up all you want, but if you don't pay them what you think they're worth or what's going to keep them retained within this city, then we're throwing money away. That's $55,000.
We agree on that.
All right, well then, next year, the commission needs to go look at it and look at base salaries or starting off salaries for the police and possibly the fire. But I'm just telling you that I wasn't very pleased with the lack of your support for the upper echelon. And I think that filters down through the force. And that could be why they left, but I would say probably not. It could be salary, who knows? But 11 police officers in 1 year for this city to lose of this size, there's something wrong there.
Well, I would make one more comment to you that I receive numerous phone calls on a daily basis from members of the police department and the fire department telling me how low the morale is and how they would like to have new leadership.
Well, I can't speak to that because I'm not in the department. But what I'm saying is by you not backing the leadership, I think that filters down too. And that could be part of
And
the
I
morale
apologize if
problem.
that's offensive, but I will not change that position. So
fine.
thank you for coming today. Thank you. Does anyone else have anything you'd like to say today? I'm sorry.
Yes, I do. I just want to add, Mr. Carr, that we have done a salary study and had an independent agent come in here and look at all the salaries and everything. We have brought those salaries up to where they're supposed to be. So the salaries within Lynn Haven is on point with any city our size. And I agree with everything that you just said. So.
Else have a comment?
I'll use the opportunity to say that unfortunately I disagree with you with this area.
Sure.
I support our police chief 100%. I think he's done a great job the times that he has come to the meetings. We're actually to receive awards. We received 2 awards this year, a total of $25,000, I think, in grant money. I think the leadership speaks highly, filters down. I think the leadership speaks all the way through the different departments. And I completely support him 100%. I understand the salary is where it is. I think it's in line. We've had studies to reflect that. But in addition to that, he's given 41 years of his life to this city. He's worked day in, day out, 41 years. You're going to get to a certain salary range by receiving raises, not every single year. Some years more, some years less. But after 41 years, you're going to make a pretty good salary if you're at one individual place for 41 years. So I do support him, and I hope that the morale of the police department is not down because of that reason. I have not received any phone calls. I would like to use this as an opportunity to say I am available all the time, 850-271-3699. Available through the email as well, commissioner_friend@cityoflynnhaven.com. I am open to discussing this with anyone that'd like to discuss it. Thank you, Mayor.
More thing, as far as the studies that were done, we've spent enough money on studies to hire several people. We've studied it to death.
But you know as well as I do, Mayor, being in education, it's all data-driven, and the data has come back and it has spoken that we are paying these people what we're supposed to be paying. Chief Messer has been here, as you said, 40-something years. He has dedicated his life to this. You may have a beef with him, which filters down to the police department. That's your personal beef. But we just got awards for this department. This department has done an exceptional job in protecting the citizens of Lynn Haven. They go out at night to help people who are fallen. And for you to have your Facebook under the pretense of mayor and to go out and basically not support the police department is derelict of your duty as mayor.
First of all, that's not correct. You made a misstatement.
No, it's very true because the documentation and the data speaks for itself. It's all written on Facebook. So
everything that's on Facebook is for public record, and I would challenge you to find one statement that I made that was derogatory about the men and women in the department.
But you just mentioned yourself that you support the police department, but you don't support the leadership. So you don't support the police department.
The police chief lives 1 block from my house. Past his house when I'm going to work or when I'm out and about, and I would wonder how many times that you've been by to see at what time he's in his office and when he's not.
Well, if I need the police chief, I just call him up on the phone. I will build a relationship with him instead of trying to bash him out in public.
I haven't
But if
bashed
I need
him.
the police department, I guarantee you, I can call any one of these guys and they'll come to what I need.
Police chief, I have no personal beef with him, as you said. I simply answered questions on Facebook that I was asked by the citizens of Lynn Haven. I know that you do not like Facebook, but it is social media. It is a way that my citizens, my residents can communicate with me. It's been highly successful. I'm sorry if my opinion is different than yours. That's what we're here for.
That's fine.
I have no personal issues with our police chief. I think he's a very nice person. Does anyone else have a comment they would like to make? Yes, Mr. Kelly. Excuse me, former Mayor Kelly.
Mayor, Commissioners, I came here to be quiet tonight. But when the subject about our police department came up, I can no longer sit still. We got one of the best police department and leadership and the employees anywhere in the state of Florida. Now, they may not be perfect, but they've been salary studies done in my office when I was in office, and they're all compatible to the people throughout the state of Florida. And these people have been here for 40 years. I've been out there and watched them when they're in action. And I don't think too many people can say that. As a former police chief, a guy on the street, I've been out there with them. And let me tell you, it's no time to start needling our police department now. They've got enough on their shoulder without. Now, there's 7 or 8 years from now, and when I was in office, it It was going to take place. The city manager talked about it. In fact, the city manager and I talked about it before I went out of office. Through attrition, these people that's making salaries will retire and they'll leave here. But let's don't mess with them now, because if you do, there are going to be a lot of people out there that's not going to be happy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, is our laboratory. A man was eating his lunch on the same table where a meth lab test was being taken. That is not best practices. If you go into what's called our lab has an aquarium in it where a candle is lit to do a test. There are bags and trash sitting about. I visited with a sheriff, our former sheriff. We have more investigators for Lynn Haven than he had for the sheriff's department. There are places that need to be changed with the leadership. As far as the integrity, the bravery, the courage, the respect that I have for the men and women who are police officers and firefighters in this community, there is no one who respects them more than I do. However, when someone asks me directly a question, I answer it honestly. And this particular venue, Facebook, happens to be public. But isn't that the way discussions should take place from city government, in public and not in private and not hidden? I have nothing to hide about what I've said, and I don't regret anything I've said. But I appreciate you coming to the meeting and your comments. Is there anyone else who'd like to comment?
I'm not responding to your Facebook.
Well, you've gone past your 3 minutes, but I'll allow you to continue.
Okay, but I'm not going to Facebook, but I'm saying...
Well, then how do you know what I've said?
I didn't respond to what you said, but I'm responding to what's going on out in the community. They're proud of our police department. Okay. They're proud of what they do. And they're proud of all these employees. And we just need to let them do their job. They've been doing it great. I don't care what other people say. We got the best there is in the state of Florida, and I'm proud of it, and I'm proud of you.
Thank you for coming,
folks
Mr.
too.
Cowley. Does someone else have something you'd like to say?
Mayor, I approach you with all due respect.
Thank you.
But I work at the police department
Okay.
and have worked there almost 29 years.
Okay.
When you did your tour of the police department, you spoke to no one about what our jobs were. You didn't speak to anyone, and there was no one eating lunch in our lab. It stays locked. These are our two CSI men right here. They don't eat lunch in there. They eat lunch in the kitchen with me.
Well, one of your officers ate lunch in there that talked to me about it.
Well, it stays locked, so I disagree with that statement. I also have a question. What direction do you want to see our police department go in? You keep saying that, but you haven't said that.
As far as the direction, I'd like to see a police chief who comes to his office and stays there during the daytime or is available all day long to his men. I'd like to see more technology available to our police officers. I'd like to see entry-level people paid a livable wage. I would like to see an upgraded laboratory. I would like to see all those evidence rooms over there that are filled with cardboard boxes and garbage cleared out. I would like to see a holding cell for someone who is arrested instead of a chair with a handcuff where they're chained to it.
Okay, well,
it's not 1952.
The holding cell opens up a whole nother can of worms for our department and a whole nother level that we have to go on, because then we become a jail facility. So you need to stop and think about the regulations and everything that go along with that.
A chair with a handcuff on it on someone's ankle where they could injure themselves. There was one place in the wall where I was told that somebody hurt themselves as they tried to push through a wall because they were so frightened being chained to a chair.
That's not what that was about. They were acting out is why they did that. They weren't frightened. They were a prisoner. We deal with them every day. I've seen them come through our department. The worst I've ever been talked to was by somebody I ran an intoxilizer test on.
I'm sure.
So I disagree with what you're saying.
Okay.
And if you would take the time to talk to me about what my job is and what all the rest of our officers' jobs are in our office, we would welcome that. But you've never tried to get to know any of us.
I've not been welcomed in that department, ma'am.
Well, that's not true either. And you were over there for our luncheon. Did you speak to any of us when we had our 911 memorial
I
luncheon?
sat at a table with a group of officers and firefighters.
You sat with firefighters, ma'am. You didn't speak to any of our officers. Commissioner Ashbrook sat with us. We invited anybody that came in that room to sit with us. He is the only one that did.
Well, I sat down where I was invited to sit. I think that's a little petty. I mean, I don't know which ones were firefighters or police officers. You weren't in uniform. Most of them weren't.
Yes, ma'am, we were in
Some
uniform.
were, some were not.
Well, again, I
You're
disagree
not.
with that. I don't have a uniform.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
And I'm not a police officer.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Did you have other?
Pardon?
Did you have other comments? I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh,
you.
no, I just brought backup documentation just in case I needed to defend our statistics that I have from last year and for the current year.
One more time, I've not said one derogatory comment about any employee of the police department. I said the police department needed new leadership based on what I've been told by the officers.
Well, I agree with Mr. Carr. You have said you support first responders. You did not say you supported the police department.
I was under the impression that policemen and firefighters and EMTs are all first responders. Is that
again,
incorrect?
perception and what the employees see is different than your statements.
Thank you very much. I apologize for any misconception about what I said, because I certainly did not say those things. Is there anyone else who has a comment? Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.